Return, O virgin daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.
Welcome back to another edition of Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn with B'nai Yosef North America. Along with me, my friend and colleague and brother, Tzefania Pappas. Tzefania, you got to do the interview for our guest this week and next week. Would you like to tell us who we're going to hear from?
Well, these are familiar guests because our last interview with them, actually, David Phillips himself, we've interviewed him. This will be the third time. And this will be now the second time that we've interviewed Samantha Lagoy. Now, Samantha, she works with David Phillips, and David Phillips is actually working with the only Messianic home that's in the state of Israel, and it's called Ebenezer Home. It's in Haifa, and what Samantha does is assist David in fundraising. And she's also been a volunteer at the home.
Yes, it is a fascinating story about the Ebenezer Senior Citizens Home in Haifa. In fact, let me go ahead and give the website now. If you want to look that up, it's Ebenezer, Ebenezer, Ebenezer.co.il. You can go there. You can learn about what they do. This ministry to the senior saints in Israel, Jewish, Arab, whoever it is, do they have a testimony in Messiah Yeshua? Well, that's the place for them. And what we're going to hear from David and from Samantha is how they've gone through this interesting COVID time and are dreaming big dreams for the future. That's one of the things that impacted me. How about for you, Tzefania? What stuck out to you this time around?
Yeah, it did, because the last time we had heard from David, they were talking about the plans of adding on to their particular location that they're at, and they were encouraged now by other brothers and sisters that are in the Netherlands to actually think bigger. You're not thinking enough, and so you'll hear in this interview that he's talking about actually getting land and building a whole new facility.
Which is no small thing in any country, but in Israel, especially, that's a tremendous step of faith.
Yes.
And then we have music from the House of Aaron and from our good friend Solomon Lopez. And we have a midrash from our elders Barry Phillips and David Jones, which they call Kingdom People, Kingdom Benefit. But for now, let us move on to Haifa, Israel.
Actually, Ellijay, Georgia.
Ellijay, okay. Yeah, there's a connection here. You will hear of it as the interview proceeds, and we'll explain more about that later on. But let's listen to David Phillips and Samantha Lagoy with the Ebenezer Home.
Hello, this is Tzefania Pappas with B'nai Yosef North America, and with me are two special guests, David Phillips from Israel. You've heard him before. He is with Ebenezer Home, and also Samantha Lagoy, who was a volunteer there. And so we're going to have a very interesting conversation, and I know that all of you out there who have heard them already before will be very blessed by what you hear. So, David, could you update our listeners as to some of the things that have been happening in Israel? Like, since the last time you talked, we have now had this crisis that has hit the world now, and you've had to walk through all of this, with everything that's been going on with that, and I'm sure that's been quite a challenge for you.
Well, it has been really challenging, but first of all, I must say, thank our Father that everything went well with us, especially if I'm looking back to the ministry where I am at the Ebenezer Senior Citizens Home in Haifa. All our citizens have been safe during the COVID period. No one has been ill with COVID, except of some of the employees, but just light symptoms. Yes, we did some drastic countermeasurements to prevent getting COVID in the home. We separated those that coming in and delivering stuff, or visitors would be separated outside of the building. You know, we had a little window open and everyone was on a social distance. But we tried as much as we can to keep normal life. And I say as much as is possible. You must understand that as a senior citizens home, we are under the mandatory regulations of the Ministry of Health and Welfare in Israel. And of course, we want to be a witness. We want to keep those rules and restrictions. But on the other side, you want to maintain a normal life. You understand, Safania, that's not easy. I mean, in Israel, people are really friendly. And when you meet each other, you give a hug.
Yes.
And this was not an option anymore. So those residents in the home and we as a staff, we became even more involved like family. It was an amazing atmosphere. Of course, not in the beginning of those tension weeks. It was tense. We did not know where it would take us. We did not know the outcome of the whole illness and what it will mean to us, or what the Lord has in plan for us. But over a period of the first 6-7 weeks, everyone, I think, changed. And of course, we have, as I recently told you also in the previous program, we start with devotions in the morning. At 7:30 in the morning, the residents, those who can, are healthy enough to come down half an hour before breakfast. We have a reading and a prayer time, which is very encouraging. And people enjoy that because that's fellowship. And we as human beings, we need fellowship. And as believers in Yeshua especially, you need this fellowship before Him and with Him and with your other believers, brothers and sisters. So this is something that was so encouraging, and the people just longed for that. And what they did, they started having even more devotions in the evening together, because family cannot come. And every time you greet an elderly person, it's like you hug him. And there were more personal conversations going on. I would go and visit the people more frequently in their rooms because we were allowed in. And you sit down, you listen to them. You listen to the stories of the Holocaust survivors. You listen to the Arabic believers who are living among us. And you listen to what their families say if they're in our place and their families are not believers. So many conversations, many deeper relationships have been developed. This has been an amazing time. On the other side, it has been very challenging because you have to deal with the families of the residents. You have to explain. There's people who do not accept it. There's people who have been telling us, well, you just want to separate us and so on. But the longer over time, they have seen how much we really care and how much we try to keep their beloved ones, safe from COVID. I can understand it's not easy, those separations. But the Lord is really merciful, graceful, and this is what we experienced.
It kind of like I was thinking of a verse in Romans, I believe, chapter 4, where it says, "And we know that all things work together for good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose."
Amen.
And so you saw what was happening here, whereas you could have had a real issue there where they're not receiving the affection that they need. because of this pandemic that's upon the world here. But what happens is that the Father starts moving in everybody's heart to rally around one another and work together as a family. And next thing you know, you're meeting the needs that they have, and actually their relationships are probably being strengthened amongst the residents themselves, I'm sure, and then of course the staff with the residents as well.
That's right. And then how good it is together when brothers and sisters sit together and dwell in His peace. I tell you that thinking of COVID and of this time in a different way. We as staff, we always have a short devotions, 15 minutes a day for the staff, just to give them a little time of rest and encouragement through scriptures. Now, we take the whole scriptures, New and Old Testament, we go through topics. I share it with the manager of the home, so he does parts, and sometimes I do. Well, he was gone. He was still on vacation when the whole COVID thing started, and he had to rush back home, which took him a bit longer. And anyhow, I was teaching on the book of Job. The book of Job is a not easy book, but it has a lot of wisdom and teaching in it. So I came there and I was preparing for the next session, which was from chapter 5. And I suggested that you at your home, you start reading and look into chapter 5. I'm not going to quote right now the verses, but I'm in the evening, I'm reading chapter 5, and with a prayer in my heart that I have a word or a few sessions that I can take out of that. And it's like, this is so depressive. This is so disencouraging chapter. I cannot continue this. So I read until mid of the chapter, and I closed the Bible, and I said, Lord, just give me peace about this, because what Job is going through and what he's telling here, I cannot share this in midst of a pandemic that is building up. So I went to bed. Early in the morning, I wake up, and it's like a voice in my heart tells me, and of course we all know who that is. Yeah. It says, no, you cannot read half of a chapter. You have to read the whole chapter. You cannot take part of the Bible and not read the rest of it. So I quickly opened my Bible and I started again, read the chapter from the beginning till the end, and I noticed that the second half of this chapter is so encouraging. And this is something, it says, it will not touch you. And if there is something going around, destroying around you, it will not touch you. And this was really encouraging. And then I understood again that I have to read the whole chapter, bring it up, teach from that chapter, encourage the others. And this is what we did. And everyone joined afterwards in prayer. And I think we started a new prayer session for this time, which brought us till here now. And thank the Lord that He has helped until now.
And just to refresh our listeners on what we're talking about here is Ebenezer Home, which is a home for believers in Yeshua in Israel and Haifa. And it's the only home that's in Israel, isn't that correct?
Right now, it's the only home for believers in Yeshua, Jewish believers, Arabic believers, and those that are from the Gentiles, just married into Israelis and so on, and living in Israel. The only home for believers, run by believers, right now.
Okay. So, and just for our listeners, Ebenezer Home exists because of support from listeners like you. So if that's something that you're being led to give to, we'll have those details at the end of this interview. So, but I want to turn now to Samantha, because she's been a volunteer with Ebenezer Home. But now, since the pandemic, her main responsibility has been on this side, which is going around to various congregations and sharing with them about Ebenezer Home. And maybe you could reflect on your experience doing that.
Wow, yeah, it's been really encouraging. On one hand, I spent 2019 mostly on the road traveling, and of course when COVID hit, I ended up being at the home base in South Carolina. But something that was really encouraging for me during this period is just, it really taught me about, I think it's Matthew 25, where it talks about if you give a glass of water, you've done it unto me. And if you help clothe them, and seeing just the elderly that I gotten to meet along, all over the United States, how lonely they've been through this time. Many of them, have lost their spouses, or they never had children, so they don't have children to look to. And just hearing how lonely they've been, and realizing that as believers, we can come beside them. And even if it's just an encouraging phone call, sometimes even just in the middle of the night, I get a phone call from an elderly person just needing to talk. And, just being able to be there, especially for those that are local. With traveling, it's just starting, back up since the pandemic has settled down a little bit. And it's just been really encouraging to see how many believers have a heart for the elderly, and just even being able to encourage them in their own ministries, and being able to talk to them about, their ministries in the nursing homes as well. And just being able to encourage the people, I think, has been one of the most encouraging things. And being able to pray as believers together.
So somebody, if there was a congregation out there or a listener that wants to go ahead and say, hey, they come to their congregation and say, hey, there's this place called Ebenezer Home. What if there's somebody wanted to hear more? Would they contact you and that you would come to their congregation to speak? Or how would that work?
Yes, usually contact me, and then usually I set up David's travels as well, so one of us could come. But the best way is to contact me through either the phone number, which I can give you in a minute, or email is another way. Or if you go on the Ebenezer website, which is ebenezer.co.il, there's a contact page, and you can tell us what you want and write us a note, and then we'll be able to contact you back and set up arrangements.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now, David, I want to turn to you about one of the last things that we were talking about in our last interview was this construction project that you were trying to raise awareness of, that you're trying to raise funds for. How has that been going?
Well, the construction plans and the expansion of the home are necessary because the home is quite old. It's hitting almost 50 years now. It's, I think, 47 and a half, 48 years. And there are mandatory changes that we have to do to keep our license. All the urgency went down the moment COVID hit. The government understands that no one is building right now, and it's all kind of put on ice a little bit. But it's still necessary, and we know that very soon we will be challenged by the government again. Right now, we use the time of COVID to raise awareness with many friends of the home. We call it the family of Ebenezer, because many people who visited us or go on our website and read the testimonies of the residents, they feel attracted to follow us. And you can read testimonies of Holocaust survivors, of different stories of our residents, and they all need a nursing ward or nursing home to stay in our place. Right now we are actually assisted living with only a few options of nursing care. So we are planning to build a home with about 140 beds, 3 or 4 nursing wards, and a self-assisted living area.
And now, give thanks to the Lord from House of Aaron. You can find more of their music at houseofaaron.com.
Shalom, everyone. Welcome to the Midrash portion of today's Reunion Roadmap. This is Barry Phillips from Gloucester, Virginia. And with me today is David Jones from Tampa, Florida. How are you, sir? Or Braden, Florida, actually.
Yeah, Brandon, we're doing good today. Rainy and hot. It's Florida.
It's Florida. 2 seasons, brown and green.
Brown and green. It's the 2 seasons of Florida. And the wet is somewhere in there on both sides.
Dave, I understand that as we follow the Torah, as we seek to be observant of the things that are commanded, we're coming out of a Greco-Roman Western mindset of things, where we look to governmental structure, societal structure to provide stability for us, security for us, a sense of judicial expectations for us, where things should be well with us. And for the most part, our nation here in America, that's what we kind of have. There's obvious disappointments in many respects of that, but we won't go into those arenas. In the middle of this is a group of people, or are a group of people, that as we are trying to establish ourselves to a different set of values, that even though our nation is said to be founded on Judeo-Christian concepts, sometimes those concepts are only floating in the air. They're not really observant among us. So we have a group of people that are looking for something better. We're expecting the arrival of our Messiah and the bringing of his kingdom. It leads me to a couple of thoughts here. One is we're kingdom people. When we are born again, we're grafted into the olive tree. We're made a part of one with Israel. Am Israel. That's not to say that we become Jewish. No, we're Hebrews, but we're learning what that means. We're learning what kingdom concepts mean. We follow the Torah and realize this is the guideline, the constitution perhaps of the coming kingdom, and we're trying to live it out now. What's frustrating to some of us, to many of us, I would suppose, is that kingdom benefit is not immediately apparent. What is apparent is more of the Greco-Roman world system results. How do we balance this out? What do we do with this? Are we willing to persevere and endure? Well, there's some novel concepts. Are we willing to persevere and endure through the present systems of this world while we await the kingdom? Or are we going to set the kingdom aside and take advantage of every and any opportunity that this world offers, thinking, well, when the kingdom benefits actually show up, then I'll be back? Are we in it for the road of least resistance, or are we willing to cut a path that says the kingdom is what is real, and I'm going to stick with the kingdom benefits of the Torah, even though they don't show up yet? I don't know. That's me. Maybe you're already sitting over there in Florida and kingdom benefits are raining out of the ceiling on top of you. How's it going with you guys?
We got rain, but it's just water. that is such a great lead in, Barry. I mean, it somewhat ties into the test for a false prophet as well, which I know we're not going down that road today, but in Deuteronomy 13 and Deuteronomy 18, when you read back these things, and in Deuteronomy 8 as well, man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God, kind of thing. all these things tie in together, because Yahweh says that he allows some things and certain things to happen around us, to prove us, to test us, so that we would know whether we love the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, or not. And I tend to paraphrase that this way, so that we would know whether we love Yahweh or love the idea of Yahweh.
Oh,
Yeah. Do we love him, or do we love our ideas of who we think he is and set him up as an idol and build up this romanticized idea of what life in the kingdom is supposed to look like? And if it doesn't look like that, did the kingdom fail me? Or did my own expectations of what that kingdom is fail me?
oh.
It's a perception problem. It's a perception issue. And
You say make idol out of Yahweh. That just whoa. That you can chew that for a while.
that could be something that could go quite a while. Yeah, that's a deep road to go down. It really is, because that's a hard thing to fathom for many, many people. And I'm willing to be wrong on it, but that's just my take. But the question itself is one that's been asked through the ages. I mean, this is one that Yeshua's Talmidim asked Yeshua. Are you at this time going to restore the kingdom? Are you at this time going to make all this happen? What were they expecting when they said that?
Well, I think that immediately they were thinking the end of Roman occupation.
That's right. The right here, right now, the destroy the Romans because they're oppressing us, and we can't freely live in a Torah society, and we want to live in a society like you said you wanted us to, and we can't do that because of the Romans. So you're going to destroy the Romans and set up your own rule, and we're going to rule with you, by the way, right?
Yeah, and
this
maybe also would have included in our mind the end of the religious oppression of the professional system.
Yes, can't not include that. That was a huge part of it, and I think it's a question that's still worth repeating. I mean, even what Yeshua told them, hey, it's not up to you to know the times or the seasons, right? I mean, basically what he was saying, do what I had asked you to do, and let that be your concern. Don't worry about all these other things right now. And, Yeshua also said, occupy till I come, right?
Right.
But he also said things that lead us to believe we have some stuff to do here now, because we tend to think of the kingdom as someday, somehow, when I die, I'm going to get there in the great by and by. And not, someday we will walk in the fullness of his kingdom, right? But until then, we are here. Does that mean we cannot walk in his kingdom here? No, we can walk in his kingdom here. Matter of fact, that's what Yeshua had said regarding certain Pharisees, that, they said, when will the kingdom come? And he said, you're not going to see it because it's within you. Well, that doesn't mean there is not another kingdom that we're going to walk in fully. What he's saying is, it is in you and how your expression of one another and how you live your life and the things that you do toward one another, what you make of it right here, right now. This is not like physical buildings and things you're going to see. It's beyond that. And in order to see beyond that, we have to look within ourselves first. It's much like we have to look and see what we can't see. We have to look into the eternal, not the temporal.
Well,
Because
let's look at something practical here, if I can interrupt just a second.
Sure.
The law of the Shemitah. We're not seeing supernatural increase in a 6th year of the 7th year cycle to where we don't have to plant anything for the 7th year because we got such an abundant crop. At least I haven't seen that. Do we even know what year the Shemitah cycle, which we're on? Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, there's more varied opinions than you can count.
right.
Every 50 years, are we allowed to completely cancel our debts and start all over again? No. Are we seeing our enemies flee from before us supernaturally. No, insurgents everywhere seem to gain an upper hand more often than what we should outclass them, outman them, outgun them with technology and so forth, and yet they seem to still manage to do inflicting harm. I mean, just look around and see how many maimed men and women have come back from Afghanistan and Iraq, etc. The kingdom benefit is not fully enjoyed except when you begin to realize we have the kingdom opportunity of building community.
That's a great place to start that. Yeah.
We are learning the beauty of Shabbat. We're finding joy in celebrating his Hamoedim, his feast days. We're beginning to see an increase, just slightly, of those that are identifying as Am Israel. The years of bickering, fighting, and dividing are it seems like that there is a slowing of that tide, at least what I'm seeing, and maybe a greater willingness to be amiable, agreeable, noting, yes, you see it different than I do, but I want to be your brother. I want to be your sister. I want to function in community. That, B'nai Yosef, that's what we're all about, is finding the middle ground, the healing ground, the restoring ground, and getting people to stand on it. And we're just beginning to see the effect of that. So there is kingdom benefit. It's just not in the more concrete, practical aspects as much as it is in the relational and community aspects. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. That's a perfect insert, because it has to start with our heart. It has to start within us and what we desire. And when we desire the things that he's telling us, what's that going to lead to? Exactly what you just said. It's going to bring us to a point of coming together for his glory in his name, and not so much about ourselves. These other things, they'll get taken care of, because these are the things that Yahweh said is eternal, his word, first and foremost, right?
Right.
So if that's the case, how can we see his word? Well, and you can say, oh, Yeshua. Okay, no, I'm talking literally us day to day with how do we see his word? And in my thinking, it's by our actions of doing it toward one another.
Right.
And I think that's a good place to put it. How do we live in the kingdom and have the blessings of it? Obedience to what Yahweh has told us will bring the blessing, not just to us, but to others. And I think that is the thing that people are going to see. They're going to see his kingdom. Even when we pray, thy kingdom come, right? What comes next? Thy will be done. Where? On earth.
Right.
And how does that happen? With us. And I think it's a good place for us to start. Look at our heart. And is our heart really centered on the kingdom? Centered on Yahweh and his word, his life? Then we're going to have a role to play in seeing that kingdom happen here now.
Well, the reality is, David, that the kingdom will come for those that have been looking for it and waiting for it and seeking it. Those that have rejected the kingdom at this point, saying it's not worth the wait. Will they even receive the kingdom when it comes? Will they even recognize the kingdom when it appears? Or will they still be combative against it, saying, it's been done away with?
That's good. Turning away from the field, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that pretty much puts us close to the end of this broadcast, Barry. Is our hearts willing to portray the kingdom, not just within ourselves, but as an expression toward one another? Be in the fields, don't grow weary, and don't get faint-hearted, because Yahweh says, if we search for him, we will find him if we search wholeheartedly, and don't give up.
Amen. Well, folks, we enjoy your comments, your questions. If you have such and you would like to contact us, you can reach us at Reunion Roadmap at BeneYosefNA.com. We'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line. Till next week, shalom, David.
Shalom.
Here is Solomon Lopez and the Hebraism Music Project singing In Your Mercy, available at Hebraism.org.
You rebuild Yerushalayim. You rebuild Ephraim. You rebuild Yehuda and all of Israel. You rebuild Yerushalayim. You rebuild Ephraim. You rebuild Yehuda and all of Israel. Soon and in our day, soon and in our days. Baruch atah, Baruch atah Yehovah, blessed are you, O Yah. You rebuild us in your mercy. You rebuild us. You rebuild us in your mercy. You rebuild Yerushalayim in your mercy. You rebuild all of Ephraim in your mercy. You rebuild all of Yehuda in your mercy. You rebuild all of Israel in your mercy. You restore us with your love. and you're rid of all our bitterness. You separate light from darkness. You stand in when we're accused, and you're rid of our envy and jealousy. Your whole love, yes, your whole love, your whole love casts out all fear. Your whole love casts out all fear. In your mercy, in your mercy, in your mercy, you rebuild me. In your mercy, you restore me.
You just heard the song In Your Mercy by Shlomo, as I call him, or Solomon O. Lopez. And we were listening to this midrash, and it was called Kingdom Benefits is part of the title in there. And many of our listeners might be listening to this and wondering, okay, does that fit into this interview? And so, Al, what do you think about that, where it would fit into this interview?
I think where it fits is where we get the soundbite from David Jones. He says, do we love Yahweh, or do we love the idea of Yahweh?
Yes.
If we love him, we're going to do what he says, regardless of what we see. And this goes along with two examples from scripture I'm thinking of. With the disciples in John 6, after most of the followers of Yeshua left, because he was saying hard things like, I'm the bread that's come down from heaven. You have to eat my flesh and drink my blood to enter the kingdom of heaven. What does that mean? It's a hard saying. And so we know what it means now, looking at it spiritually and symbolically. But in first century Galilee, it was hard and they left. So he turns to the disciples and says, are you too going to leave? And Shimon Kepha, Simon Peter, says, Lord, where would we go? You have the words of life. There's one example. The other, in Daniel, where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were threatened with being thrown into the fiery furnace, what do they say? To King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, we will not bow to your image. Know that our God is able to save us from your fiery furnace. But even if he chooses not to, we will not bow down to your image. That's the kingdom people who are serving the king, even if they're not seeing the benefits. And you know what? A ministry to senior saints in Israel, or any ministry, even to the smallest child in the vacation Bible school in a little town in Alabama, such as where I am now, we may not see the kingdom benefit.
Yes.
We will in time. But as our elders were saying, the beginning of seeing these benefits come not in the concrete and practical aspects of, secure living, everything we need, money, etc. No, it comes in the relational and community aspects. That's what Samantha and David are telling us about. That is the strength and the beauty of the Ebenezer Home. And I believe that is where we see this link between what our elders have said and what our friends David and Samantha have shared.
Yes, I would wholeheartedly agree with that connection.
Wholeheartedly, because it starts with the heart, doesn't it?
Exactly.
And that's where we have to end this time around, because sadly we are out of time. So thank you very much for joining us in this edition of Reunion Roadmap. This is Al McCarn on behalf of Zephaniah Pappas, Barry Phillips, and David Jones. Shavua Tov.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.